she made a deadly deal. Now, there's no escape. How far would you go to save your family? Ronke's father was dying. She had no money, no hope, until a mysterious talking dog offered her wealth in exchange for something unthinkable. At first, the money saved her family, but soon the price became unbearable. Then her brother found out. The whispers spread. Her secret was no longer safe. Now the man she loves is about to uncover the horrifying truth, and when he does, her entire world will shatter. Will Raphael stand by her, or will this secret destroy her forever? Watch till the end, because once the truth is revealed, there's no turning back. Before we begin this gripping tale, please we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Kindly react to the story by your like, comments and share means a lot to me as a creator. It gives me drive to generate more interesting stories and educative stories. Please, don't forget to like, comment where you are watching from.
Called Amaocha, where the hills stretched tall against the sky and the streams were clear and cool, there lived Ronke, a young, pretty girl in her late teens. Ronke's father was a vegetable farmer. Her mother sold the vegetables at the market, and her younger brother, Balaji, spent his days chasing after goats in the fields. Life was hard, but they managed until one day when things took a bad turn as her father fell ill. At first, it was just a fever, but it got worse. His breathing became heavy, and his skin burned like fire. They had no money for medicine, and the herbs her mother used did nothing to heal him. Ronke watched as her father's strength faded away, and every day her heart grew heavier. One evening, after fetching water from the stream, Ronke sat by the water's edge. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. She placed the heavy water pot beside her and began to cry. Her tears fell into the stream, mixing with the flowing water. She sang a sad song, one her mother used to sing when times were hard. Her voice was soft, but the pain in it was clear. She cried and sang until it got quite dark, and the stars appeared in the sky. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and she fell asleep under the tree by the stream. When it was completely dark, something cold and smooth brushed against her skin. Startled, Ronke woke up. A dog was sitting beside her, its fur glistening in the moonlight. She screamed and jumped up, running a few steps away, her heart pounding in her chest. But then she realized she had left her water pot by the stream. It was late, and her family needed the water, so she forced herself to go back. As she reached for the pot, a soft voice stopped her. "Don't be afraid," the voice said. Ronke froze and looked around, but she saw no one. "Down here," the voice said again. Her eyes dropped to the dog, and she realized with shock that it was the dog speaking. You talk?" Ronke asked, her voice shaking. "Yes," the dog replied. "My name is Dotan. I heard you crying and wanted to help." Ronke was too shocked to move. She had never heard of a dog that could talk. "Help? How can a dog help me?" she asked, still crouching by the water. "I heard your song, and I felt your sadness," Dotan said, its voice calm and soft. "I have been lonely for a long time. I only ask for your company. If you sing for me each time you come to fetch water, I will give you something in return." Ronke stared at the dog, unsure of what to say. What could you give me?" she finally asked. Dotan sat closer and set a small calabash beside her. "Every time you sing for me, you will find this calabash filled with money when you return home." Ronke felt her chest tighten. Money. They needed money for her father's medicine, but could she really trust a dog? She stood up quickly, shaking her head. "I don't want your money," she said, her voice trembling. She picked up her pot and hurried home. That night, when Ronke reached her house, she found her father's condition had worsened. His breathing was shallow, and he could barely open his eyes. Her mother sat by his side, looking more tired than ever. Ronke knew then that they needed money urgently, or they would lose him. The next day, with her heart heavy, Ronke returned to the stream. After fetching water, she sat under the tree again. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to sing the same sad song. Her voice floated over the water, and soon enough, she heard the rustling of leaves. Doten emerged from the shadows.
You came back, the dog
said, almost sounding pleased. I need the money, Ronke said quietly, her eyes fixed on the ground. For my father's medicine. Doten nodded its head slowly. Then take the calabash, it said. It will be full by the time you return home. Ronke picked up the calabash and went home, her heart pounding. When she opened it, she almost screamed. The small calabash was full of cash, enough to pay for her father's medicine and more. Her hands shook as she showed her mother, explaining that she had found a job working for the queen as a maid. Her mother believed her, and with the money, they bought the medicine her father needed. His health slowly improved, and for the first time in weeks, there was hope in their home. But the visits to the stream continued. Every day after fetching water, Ronke would sit under the tree and sing for Doten. Every evening when she returned home, the calabash would be filled with money. Her family stopped asking questions, but they wondered how she had found such a good job. One day, however, her father's health took a sudden turn for the worse. He grew sicker than ever, and the medicine they had was no longer enough. They needed more, and they needed it fast. The next evening, Ronke went to the stream, her heart heavy with worry. After she sang, Doten emerged as usual, its eyes watching her closely. Ronke swallowed hard and said, I need more money. My father's health is getting worse. Doten was silent for a moment, then it spoke. I can give you more, but for that, you must do something for me. Ronke frowned. What do you want? The dog moved closer, its eyes gleaming in the moonlight. You must let me have my desires with you, it said, its voice soft but firm. Ronke's heart stopped. She had never expected this. She had thought they were friends. How could it ask this of her? She was a virgin, and the idea of having something with a dog terrified her. She shook her head, unable to speak at first. I can't, she whispered. But then she thought of her father, lying sick at home, struggling to breathe. She had no other choice. Her father needed the money, and without it, he would die. Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. I'll do it, she said. Doten slinked back into the shadows, and when it returned, it gave Ronke a larger calabash. Tomorrow night, it said, come back, and we will seal our agreement. The next night, Ronke prepared herself. She went to the stream, her legs trembling, dread sinking into her stomach. She sat under the tree, waiting for the darkness to fall. When night came, Doten appeared, its body lithe and sleek. Slowly, it crept toward her, and Ronke clenched her fists, biting her lip to keep from crying out. The dog had his desire, and later when it was over, Ronke gathered her clothes and ran home, tears streaming down her face. The large calabash was waiting for her, full of money, but this time, the price felt much too high. She cried all the way home, feeling ashamed and dirty. She had done something she never imagined she would do, and for what? Money? Her father's life? But the guilt weighed on her, and the tears wouldn't stop. When she got home, her mother was sitting outside peeling yams for dinner. Ronke, are you all right? Her mother asked, her face lined with worry. I'm fine, Mama, Ronke said, forcing a smile. She didn't want to worry her mother more than she already was. I just had a long day. She slipped into her room and lay on her mat, curling into herself. That night, she didn't sleep. She kept thinking about what had happened at the stream, about Doten and how she had let it take advantage of her. Her father's health was improving, but at what cost? She felt trapped, like she had sold her soul for a handful of coins. Days turned into weeks, and her father got better. He could walk again, and his strength was returning. Ronke's family was happy, but she wasn't. Every night, she went to the stream, sang for Doten, and lay beside it. Each time it got harder to hide her pains. The money kept coming, but she didn't care anymore. She just wanted it to stop. One evening, after another desirable night with the dog, Ronke told Doten, I don't need your money anymore. My father is well. We have to stop. Doten's cold eyes watched her. If we stop, your father will become sick again, the dog said simply. Ronk's heart sank. But he's healthy now, she protested. He doesn't need anything more. If you stop coming to me, he will fall ill again, Doten repeated, its voice calm but final. Ronke felt like the ground had been ripped from under her feet. She had no choice. If she stopped, her father would suffer. She cried for hours by the stream that night, wondering what she had gotten herself into. She had thought the deal would save her family, but now it seemed like a curse. The weeks passed, and Ronke continued going to the stream every night. She sang for Doten, and the dog lay beside her, its weight cold and heavy. Each time, it hurt, but she kept going because of her father. But one night, everything changed. Her little brother, Balaji, had noticed her sadness. He was small but clever, and he had always looked up to his big sister. That evening, he heard her crying in her room. He knocked on her door. "Sister, what's wrong?" Balaji asked, his small voice full of concern. "Nothing, Balaji," Ronke said quickly, wiping her tears. "Go to bed." But Balaji wasn't convinced. He could see the sadness in Ronke's eyes, and he knew something was wrong. So the next evening, he decided to follow her. He didn't tell anyone, not even their mother. He just watched as Ronke left the house with her water pot, and then he quietly followed her through the trees, staying out of sight. Ronke didn't notice him. She walked to the stream as usual, set down her pot, and sat under the tree. Balaji crouched behind a large rock, peeking out just enough to see what his sister was doing. Ronke started to sing, her voice soft and sad. It was the same song she always sang when she was upset, the same one their mother used to sing. Balaji watched her closely, but nothing seemed unusual. Maybe she was just sad. Maybe that was all. But then, as the sun began to set and the sky turned dark, Balaji heard Ronke speaking. "Please," Ronke said, her voice low, "take it be gentle, oh. I'm tired." Balaji frowned. Who was she talking to? He peeked around the rock, his eyes wide with curiosity. That's when he saw it. A large, dark dog was stepping out from the bushes, moving towards Ronke. Balaji's heart pounded in his chest as he watched, frozen in place. Ronke didn't look scared. She sat there, her legs slightly open, and the dog settled beside her, its body winding against hers. Balaji couldn't believe what he was seeing. His sister was lying with a dog. He couldn't keep quiet any longer. He screamed, a loud, piercing scream that echoed through the trees. Ronke jumped up, startled. The dog growled and quickly disappeared into the bushes, melting into the shadows. Ronke's heart raced as she looked around, her eyes landing on Balaji, who was staring at her with wide, terrified eyes. "Balaji!" Ronke shouted, her voice shaking. "What are you doing here?" Balaji's face was pale. What were you doing?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. He was trembling, his eyes still wide with fear. Ronke felt like she was going to faint. She didn't know what to say. How could she explain this? How could she tell her little brother that she had been lying with a dog for money? "Balaji, listen to me," she said, stepping towards him, her hands shaking. "I can't explain." But Balaji didn't wait to hear the rest. He turned and ran, his small feet kicking up dust as he raced back home. Ronke stood there, frozen, tears streaming down her face. She had kept this secret for so long, but now. Ronke stood by the stream, paralyzed with fear and shame as her brother's footsteps faded into the distance.
She could barely breathe.
Her secret, the terrible deal she had made with Doten, was no longer hidden. Balaji knew. What would he tell their parents? What would happen to their family now? Heart pounding, Ronke grabbed her water pot and ran home as fast as she could. When she arrived, Balaji was nowhere to be found. Her mother was sitting by their father's bedside, unaware of what had just transpired. "Ronke, is everything all right?" her mother asked, noticing her daughter's flushed face and trembling hands. Ronke opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She couldn't tell her mother the truth. Not now. Not ever. She forced a nod and rushed to her room, her mind racing. What would she do? How could she fix this? Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Ronke crept to Bolaji's room. He was sitting on his mat, his small face still pale and wide-eyed with shock. He looked up at her, his expression filled with a mixture of confusion and fear. "Bolaji, please listen to me," Ronke whispered, kneeling beside him. "I can explain." Bolaji didn't speak at first. He just stared at her, his eyes glistening with tears. "Why, Ronke," he finally whispered. "Why were you with that dog? What are you doing?" Ronke's heart broke at the pain in her brother's voice. She took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "I didn't want to, Bolaji," she said softly. "I did it for Papa, to save him." Bolaji frowned, his small brow furrowing in confusion. "What do you mean?" Ronke's voice shook as she explained everything: the deal with Doten, the nights at the stream, the money that had saved their father. "It was the only way, Bolaji. I didn't know what else to do." "Bolaji. No. You don't control me anymore." Doten growled, baring its teeth, its body rippling with anger. "You dare defy me?" Ronke's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "I do." Doten lunged at her, its sharp teeth snapping in the air. Ronke stumbled back, fear gripping her, but she remembered Chioma's words. She couldn't show fear. "I'm not afraid of you," she said, her voice rising. Doten
growled again, its body coiling as it prepared to strike.
But something strange began to happen. The air around the stream grew cold, and the ground beneath Ronke's feet started to tremble. Doten's eyes flickered with panic as it tried to lash out, but its form began to blur, its body growing weaker. Ronke stood tall, refusing to flinch. Bolaji stepped out from his hiding place, standing beside his sister. "You're nothing without our fear," Ronke said, her voice strong. With one final shout of boldness, "I'm not afraid of you, you can't control me anymore." Ronke screamed, and Doten's body collapsed into the shadows, disappearing into the night. Ronke fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. It was over. The curse was broken. Bolaji knelt beside her, wrapping his arms around her. "We did it, Ronke. It's over." Together, they walked back home, the weight of the past weeks lifting from Ronke's shoulders. She didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, she felt free. And in the quiet of the night, the stream flowed peacefully, as if the spirit of Doten had never existed. From that day forward, Ronke could no longer go to the stream. Her secret was out, and her family watched her closely. They prayed for her, but the bond with Doten was not easily broken. Each night, Ronke could feel the dog calling to her, whispering in her dreams, reminding her of the deal they had made. And though her father's health improved, the king's heart grew heavier with each passing day, for she knew that the curse of Doten still lingered. She had saved her father's life, but in doing so, she had sacrificed her soul. The village never looked at her the same again, and neither did her family. Ronke had traded something far more valuable than money, and she would live with that choice forever. The next day, Bolaji insisted they go to speak with an elder in their village. The elder, a wise old woman named Chioma, had a reputation for knowing the secrets of the land and its spirits. Ronke hesitated at first, terrified of what Doten might do if he found out, but Bolaji was determined. "We have to try," he said. "We can't let him hurt you anymore." With a heavy heart, Ronke agreed. They arrived at Chioma's hut, tucked away at the edge of the village. The old woman sat outside, her eyes sharp and knowing as they approached. "I've been expecting you, child," Chioma said, her voice low and gravelly. "I heard whispers of Doten's tricks." Ronke and Bolaji exchanged a glance, startled by the elder's words. Ronke knelt before Chioma, her voice trembling. "Please, Chioma, I need your help. I made a deal with Doten, and now I don't know how to break it." Chioma nodded slowly, her eyes narrowing. "Doten is clever, and once he has a hold on you, it's not easy to escape. But there is a way." She paused, studying Ronke's face. "You must be brave, child. It will not be easy." Ronke swallowed hard. "I'll do anything." Chioma's expression softened slightly. "Doten thrives on fear and desperation. The more you give in to him, the more power he has over you. To break the curse, you must return to the stream one final time. But this time, you will not sing. You will refuse him. Ronke's heart pounded in her chest. What will happen if I refuse? Dharmann will become angry, very angry, Chioma said. He may try to harm you. But you must stand your ground. If you can resist him, his power over you will break. But you cannot show fear, even when he threatens you. Bolaji squeezed Ronke's hand tightly, his face determined. We'll do it together. That night, Ronke and Bolaji returned to the stream. The moon was full, casting long shadows over the water. Ronke's heart raced as she sat under the tree, Bolaji hiding behind her. She waited, her hands trembling, her throat dry. Dharmann appeared, slinking out of the darkness, its eyes gleaming in the moonlight. It approached her, expecting the usual song. But Ronke did not sing. Why aren't you singing? Dharmann asked, its voice low and dangerous. I'm done, Ronke said, her voice barely above a whisper, but steady. I won't sing for you anymore. Dharmann's eyes flashed angrily. You made a deal, Ronke. If you stop, your father will suffer. Ronke clenched her fists, her whole body trembling.
Once upon a time, in a village called Amaucha, where the hills stretched tall against the sky and the streams were clear and cool, there lived Ronke, a young, pretty girl in her late teens. Ronke's father was a vegetable farmer, her mother sold the vegetables at the market, and her younger brother, Bolaji, spent his days chasing after goats in the fields. Life was hard, but they managed until one day when things took a bad turn as her father fell ill. At first, it was just a fever, but it got worse. His breathing became heavy, and his skin burned like fire. They had no money or for medicine, and the herbs her mother used did nothing to heal him. Ronke watched as her father's strength faded away, and every day her heart grew heavier. One evening, after fetching water from the stream, Ronke sat by the water's edge. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. She placed the heavy water pot beside her and began to cry.
It was unbearably silent, but inside Ronke's mind there was nothing but chaos. She lay curled up on her thin mattress, staring at the ceiling with tear-filled eyes. No matter how much she tried, she couldn't erase the memory of what Dharmann had done to her. The violation, the helplessness, the betrayal. It all haunted her like a shadow that refused to disappear. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she clutched her pillow, muffling her sobs. The pain wasn't just physical. It was the emotional torment that made her chest feel heavy, suffocating her. "Why me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible in the darkness. The clock ticked mercilessly, and no matter how hard she tried to close her eyes, sleep refused to come. It was another restless night. By morning, Ronke was exhausted. She barely had the strength to get out of bed, but hunger gnawed at her stomach. She checked the small food cabinet in her tiny room. Empty. With a deep sigh, she tied her wrapper and grabbed her basket. She needed to go to the market. The sun was already high when she arrived. The market was alive with traders shouting at the top of their voices, hawkers weaving through the crowd, and the scent of freshly ground pepper and smoked fish filling the air. Ronke navigated through the chaos, her mind still fogged with last night's thoughts. Just as she reached for a bunch of plantains, the sound of screeching tires caught her attention. A sleek black car pulled up beside her. The door opened, and out stepped a tall, handsome young man. His designer clothes and expensive wristwatch screamed wealth, but his eyes held something else: curiosity. "Hello?" he said, flashing a charming smile. Ronke barely spared him a glance before walking away. "Wait," he tried again, stepping in front of her. "I'm Raphael." She still didn't answer. Without a word, she stepped aside and walked past him, leaving him standing there, stunned. Market women started murmuring, pointing at Raphael. "Isn't that the billionaire's son?" Why is he standing like a lost puppy? Did that girl just ignore him? Raphael ran a hand through his hair, watching as Ronke disappeared into the crowd. No one had ever ignored him before. For the first time in his life, someone had walked away from him, and he found it intriguing. The next morning, Raphael sat at the dining table, but his mind was far away. His mother, a stunning woman in her late 40s, entered the room just as the maid placed a steaming plate of food in front of him. "Raphael, you look lost in thought," she observed, sitting across from him. "What's wrong?" He forced a smile. "Nothing, Mom, I'm fine." She gave him a knowing look. "Are you sure? You seem different this morning." Raphael exhaled, shaking his head. He couldn't admit that a girl, one from the market no less, had embarrassed him by walking away. Before she could push further, his mother's phone rang. She answered, and after a few moments, a wide smile spread across her face. "We finally got the deal," she announced. Raphael's eyes widened. "Wait, the deal? The $10 million contract?" His mother nodded, beaming with pride. "Yes, son, we did it!" A genuine smile broke through his brooding expression. "Wow, Mom, that's amazing. Congratulations." But even as he celebrated with her, his mind drifted back to Ronke. Who is that girl? Does he ignore me? Wow. And why am I still stopped thinking about her? Back in the village, Ronke sat on an old wooden stool outside her house, her gaze lost in the distance. She was deep in thought, trapped in the memories she wished she could erase. "Ronke?" She barely registered the voice until a hand touched her shoulder. She blinked and turned to see Miriam, her best friend, looking at her with concern. "Why are you crying?" Miriam asked, sitting beside her. Ronke sniffled but said nothing. "You know you can talk to me," Miriam pressed gently. After a moment, Ronke finally whispered, "My parents traveled to Lagos to see their cousin, and I miss them." Miriam tilted her head. "Is that all?" Ronke forced a weak smile. "And Bolaji. I miss my younger brother the most," Miriam chuckled. "Missing him is fine, but it doesn't mean you should cry." Ronke nodded, but deep inside she knew the truth. Bolaji wasn't the only reason for her tears. If only Miriam knew what she was truly going through. The morning sun bathed the small room in golden light, signaling the start of a new day. Ronke stretched her arms and sat up, forcing a smile onto her face. Today she wanted to be happy. But as she reached for her wrapper, her mind betrayed her, dragging her back to that horrible night. To the evil Dotun, to the unspeakable pain, to the shame she carried like a heavy chain around her neck. Her smile faded. Shaking her head, she pushed away the thoughts. She couldn't afford to drown in her past. Instead, she focused on cleaning the house. Afterward, she decided to visit her best friend, Tyler. As Ronke made her way to Tyler's house, she noticed a luxurious car parked awkwardly by the roadside. Standing beside it was a woman, rich, elegant, and visibly frustrated. Ronke hesitated for a moment before walking up to her. "Good morning, ma'am. Is there a problem?" The woman, who had been fanning herself aggressively, turned and sighed. "My car broke down in this dusty, disgusting place, and there isn't a single mechanic around." She sounded both angry and exhausted. Ronke gave a small nod. "I'm sorry about that. My friend knows how to fix cars. I can call him if you'd like." The woman eyed her suspiciously before sighing. "Fine, just hurry up." Ronke dialed Tyler's number. "Tyler, please, I need your help. A woman's car broke down and she needs a mechanic immediately." After a short pause, Tyler responded, "No problem, I'll be there in a few minutes." When Tyler arrived, the woman eyed him from head to toe. "This is the mechanic you called?" she asked, unimpressed. "Yes," Ronke replied. "How do I know he won't damage my car even more?" the woman scoffed. Ronke, maintaining her calm, said, I understand your concern, but you need the car fixed and you need to get to your destination. Let's do this. You can wait at my house while Tyler works on your car. When he's done, you can pick it up." The woman hesitated, but after glancing at the scorching sun, she agreed. "Fine, but if anything happens to my car, I will hold you responsible." As they walked to Ronke's house, the woman kept complaining about the heat and the dust. "Is there no transportation around here?" she asked. "There is," Ronke admitted, "but I don't have money for a ride." The woman stopped walking. "Wait, what?" Ronke simply smiled. "It's okay, we're almost there." When they arrived at Ronke's small home, the woman looked around in shock. "You live here?" "Yes," Ronke said, leading her inside. Curious, the woman asked, "What do you do for a living?" Ronke hesitated before answering. "I finished secondary school but couldn't continue because my parents don't have the money. My father is just a farmer and my mother is a housewife. There was no way to afford further education." The woman looked at her with sympathy. "So, you don't want to go to school?" "I want to," Ronke admitted. "But wanting something and being able to afford it are two different things." The woman studied her face and noticed something deeper. Pain. Sadness. "You've cried a lot, haven't you?" Ronke's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to deny it, but the truth was too heavy. "Yes," she whispered. The woman sat forward. "Tell me what happened." After a long silence, Ronke finally spoke. She told her about her father's sickness, the desperation that led her to the stream, the dog that spoke, and the dark deal she had made. The woman gasped as Ronke revealed how the dog had taken advantage of her, how she had sacrificed herself for her family, how her brother had caught her, and how she had been shunned. Tears welled in the woman's eyes. "I don't even know what to say." Ronke wiped her eyes. "I just wanted to save my family." The woman took a deep breath. "Listen to me, Ronke. You have been through hell, but you cannot let this define you. The past is painful, but you have a future. Don't let your mistakes hold you back. And that man, whoever he is, if he truly loves you, he will accept you." At that moment, Tyler called. "Ronke, I'm done fixing the car," he announced. The woman smiled at Ronke. "Come, let's go get my car." Later that evening, Ronke stood in front of her house when a familiar car pulled up. Raphael stepped out. "You again," she said, crossing her arms. "Don't you get tired of seeing me," he teased. "I think I'm in love with you," Ronke scoffed. "You don't even know me." "But I want to," Raphael insisted. "Come have dinner with me." Ronke hesitated. "It's just food," he added. "No pressure." She sighed. "Fine." As they drove to the restaurant, Ronke couldn't help but feel out of place. The luxurious interior, the waiters in tuxedos. It was all too much. "You okay?" Raphael asked as she poked at her food. "I've never been to a place like this," she admitted. Raphael smiled. "There's a first time for everything." They talked about their families, their dreams, their struggles. "I have a younger brother, Bolaji," Ronke said. Raphael's expression darkened. "I wish I had a sibling." "You don't?" "No, my father never wanted me. He abandoned me and my mother. I hate him." Ronke saw the pain in his eyes. Without thinking, she reached for his hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Raphael squeezed her hand gently. "You're beautiful, Ronke, and I think I'm falling for you." Her heart skipped a beat, but in the back of her mind a voice whispered, "If he knew the truth, would he still love me?" The next morning, Tyler knocked on Ronke's door, grinning. "You won't believe how much that woman paid me," he exclaimed. $100. That's like 1,500 naira, just for fixing her car." Ronke laughed. "That's amazing, Tyler." "Here," he said, handing her some money. "Take this. Buy something for yourself." "I can't take this," Ronke protested. "Yes, you can. you need it more. Just then a car pulled up. Raphael stepped out. Ronke's face lit up as she rushed toward him, hugging him tightly. Tyler's smile disappeared, his fists clenched, his heart shattered. No, that rich boy can't take her away from me. Tyler turned away, his mind racing. He had waited too long to confess his feelings, but now it might be too late. Tyler paced back and forth outside his small home, his hands balled into fists. His heart pounded with anger and frustration. Who does he think he is, coming out of nowhere and stealing Ronke from me? He had loved Ronke for so long, but he had never told her. He always thought there was time. He thought one day he would have enough money to make her see him differently, to make her choose him. Ronke stared at him, her mind spinning. Marriage? To Raphael? A billionaire's son? Her heart pounded, and a strange fear crawled up her spine. She loved him, she knew that much, but could she really be his wife? Raphael, Wait, he interrupted gently. Before you say anything, I want you to know this isn't about money. I don't care that you're not rich. I don't care about any of that. I just know that I want to be with you. Ronke swallowed hard. If he only knew the truth. If he knew that I was the girl who slept with a dog, he would leave me immediately. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. Raphael reached for her hands. Do you love me, Ronke? She inhaled deeply, forcing herself to smile. I really, really love you, Raphael. He grinned, relieved. Then what are you afraid of? She sighed. Your family. Your mom might accept me, but your dad... I don't know if he'll approve of this. Raphael chuckled. My dad? I don't care about his opinion. I barely even acknowledge him as my father. Ronke frowned. Why do you hate him so much? His expression darkened. Because he abandoned me and my mother. He never cared about me. He never wanted me to succeed. All he ever cared about was his business. Ronke felt a pang of sympathy. She had her own secrets, but she could see Raphael carried his own pain too. Well, it's getting late, she said softly. Your mom will be worried about you. He sighed but nodded. Yeah, I guess you're right. She walked him to the door. He hesitated before stepping out. Think about my proposal, okay? Ronke forced a smile. Okay. As he drove away, she placed a hand on her chest, feeling her heart race. I love him, but will he still love me if he finds out the truth? As Ronke stepped out of Raphael's mansion, she noticed a beautiful young woman approaching. Wanting to be polite, Ronke smiled and greeted her. Good evening. The woman barely spared her a glance, completely ignoring her as she walked past. Ronke frowned slightly, but shook it off. Maybe she's just in a bad mood. As she left, Cynthia walked into the house, her heels clicking loudly against the marble floor. She made her way to the living room and found Raphael sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. Raphael, Cynthia called, her voice sharp with anger. Raphael didn't even look up. Cynthia scoffed, folding her arms. So you're ignoring me now? Is this how much I mean to you? Am I nothing to you, not even our friendship? Raphael sighed and finally lifted his gaze. Cynthia, what do you want? Tears rolled down Cynthia's cheeks. Raphael, please. From now on, I don't want to see you anywhere near my house, ever. Cynthia shook her head in disbelief. Wait, that girl I saw leaving just now, who is she? Raphael's face softened slightly. She's my girlfriend. Cynthia's expression darkened. Girlfriend? What about us? Raphael scoffed. There was never an us, Cynthia. Whatever we had ended the moment you betrayed me. Cynthia clenched her fists. You're throwing me away for her? That classless girl? You should leave, Raphael said coldly. I hate you, Cynthia spat before storming out, her heart shattered. The next morning, Tyler was at his small auto repair shop, working on a car engine when he heard footsteps. "Excuse me, are you a mechanic?" Tyler wiped his hands on a rag and turned around. A young woman stood there, looking exhausted. Her clothes were slightly rumpled, and her expression was tired. "My car broke down last night at the end of this street," she continued. "I had to sleep in it because I couldn't find any help. Please, can you fix it?" Tyler nodded. "Yeah, I can. I'll have it running in an hour." Cynthia let out a breath of relief. "Oh, thank God." "You can have a seat," Tyler offered. "No need to stand under the sun." "Thanks." As Cynthia sat down, her shoulders slumped, and suddenly tears rolled down her face. Tyler frowned. "Why are you crying?" "It's nothing," Cynthia muttered, wiping her tears quickly. "You can talk to me," Tyler said gently. "I'm a good listener." Cynthia hesitated before sighing. "My boyfriend broke up with me because of another girl. A girl who doesn't even match up to me. I don't know what he sees in her." Tyler leaned back, crossing his arms. "Funny. Same thing happened to me." Cynthia raised an eyebrow. "Really?" Tyler nodded. "I loved my best friend, but I never told her. I was scared of losing her. And now, some rich guy has taken her away from me." Cynthia scoffed. "Rich guys always take what they want," Tyler sighed. "Yeah, but what can I do? I don't want to break Ronke's heart." Cynthia's ears perked up. "Ronk?" She let out a small laugh. "So she's the girl my ex left me for?" Tyler tensed. "Wait, your ex is Raphael?" Cynthia smirked. "Now this is interesting." Tyler sighed. "Well, it's in the past now." Cynthia's expression turned serious. "Are you really going to let him take your girl?" Tyler clenched his fists. Cynthia leaned forward. "Listen, Tyler, if you really love Ronke, you need to fight for her. Because if you don't, she'll be gone forever." Tyler's jaw tightened as Cynthia's words sank in. Maybe she was right. Maybe it wasn't too late. And maybe, just maybe, Cynthia could help him. 30 minutes later, Tyler wiped his hands on a rag and turned to Cynthia. "I'm done," he said, stepping back from the car. Cynthia raised an eyebrow. "That was fast?" He shrugged. "I know what I'm doing." A smirk crept onto Cynthia's face. "So, what are we going to do about Ronke and Raphael?" Tyler let out a deep sigh. "I don't know, Cynthia. Ronke is my best friend. I don't want to hurt her." Cynthia scoffed. "Oh, please. Do you really think Raphael would still want her if he knew the truth?" Tyler frowned. "What truth?" Cynthia leaned in, lowering her voice. "Ronke is the girl who slept with the dog?" Tyler's face contorted in shock. "Wait, are you serious?" "Dead serious." Tyler ran a hand over his head. "And Raphael doesn't know?" Cynthia let out a sinister chuckle. "Nope, but he needs to." Tyler hesitated. "I don't know, Cynthia. Telling him this could destroy her life." Cynthia rolled her eyes. "And?" "If Raphael marries Ronke, it will ruin his reputation. Do you think his rich family will accept her if they find out later?" Tyler clenched his fists. "You just want revenge." "And you just want Ronke back," Cynthia countered, crossing her arms. "So what's it going to be? You help me get Raphael back, and I help you get Ronke." Tyler hesitated for a long moment before finally nodding. "Fine. But we need proof," Cynthia smirked. "That's where you come in. You're her best friend, right? Find a way to get her to confess. Once she does, we'll have everything we need to destroy her relationship with Raphael." Tyler let out a deep breath. "Okay, I'll try." Later that afternoon, Tyler made his way to Ronke's house. He found her cleaning the small living room, humming to herself, a bright smile on her face. His heart ached at the sight. She looked so happy. She's in love, but with the wrong person. This one you're happy like this? Tyler teased, leaning against the doorframe. Hope no problem. Ronke looked up, giggling. No problem. Ooh, I feel happy. Tyler smirked. Because of that boy that's always coming to see you? She blushed. Maybe. Ah, just me now? Tyler pressed. Ronke sighed dramatically. Okay, fine. Raphael says he likes me, and I think I like him too. Tyler stiffened but forced a chuckle. Wait, do you love him or his money? Ronke rolled her eyes. It's not about the money, Tyler. He's caring. Tyler scoffed. You barely know him. You've only known him for 2 months. Ronke crossed her arms. Does it matter? Love is not about time. I feel something for him. Tyler took a deep breath. Ronke, be careful. Rich people are not the way you think they are. They don't just marry anybody. Think about it properly before you agree. Ronke bit her lip. I have been thinking. He asked me to be his wife. Tyler's heart dropped. Don't tell me you said yes, he nearly shouted. Well, I haven't responded yet. Ah, Ronke, don't agree. Ooh, Tyler exclaimed. Ronke frowned. Hey, what's wrong with me being with him? Tyler quickly covered his panic with a forced laugh. Nothing, oh, I just don't want you rushing into something that might hurt you later. Ronke sighed. I'll think about it more. Tyler nodded, trying to hide the guilt gnawing at his chest. Later that evening, Cynthia confidently walked into Raphael's mansion, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Raphael was seated on the couch, scrolling through his phone when he looked up and saw her. His expression darkened immediately. I thought I told you never to come near me again. Cynthia smirked, unfazed by his coldness. Forget about that. I came here to tell you something. Something you need to know about your so-called girlfriend, the one you claim to love so. Frowned. Cynthia, I don't have time for your games. Oh, this isn't a game, she said, crossing her arms. Ronke is the girl who slept with a dog. Raphael's entire body went rigid. His eyes widened as he stared at Cynthia, disbelief flooding his features. Wait, what? You're lying. Stop it! Cynthia chuckled darkly. Oh, my dear Raphael, you think I'd make something like this up? Ask her yourself. He clenched his jaw. Cynthia, I know you want us to get back together, but I'm sorry, it's over. I can't believe you'd cook up such a disgusting lie just to break us up. Cynthia smirked. I knew you wouldn't believe me. That's why I brought someone you do trust. She gestured towards the door, and Tyler stepped into the room. Raphael's eyes darted to him. Tyler? Tyler shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. You're Ronke's best friend. Wait, don't tell me it's true. Tyler remained silent. No, Raphael muttered, shaking his head. No, she would have told me. This is a joke. This has to be. Exhaled slowly. She didn't tell you because she was scared. Raphael felt like the ground beneath him was crumbling. His heart pounded, his vision blurred with anger and betrayal. Why didn't she tell me? He whispered. Tyler sighed. Only she can answer that. Raphael clenched his fists. Fine, I'll go meet her, but I only have one question to ask. Without another word, he stormed out of the mansion. At exactly 7 p.m., Ronke was sitting outside her small apartment, staring at the sky, lost in thought. Then she heard screeching tires. A familiar black car pulled up in front of her house. Her heart skipped a beat. Raphael. She stood up just as he stepped out of the car, his expression unreadable, but his eyes burning with fury. Ronke, come out! We need to talk! He shouted. Ronke swallowed nervously. Raphael, what's wrong? His hands clenched into fists. Why, Ronke? How could you? Tears welled in her eyes. I don't understand. Now you're playing smart, Raphael spat bitterly. Why didn't you tell me you were the girl who slept with a dog? Ronke's breath hitched. Her entire body went cold. He knew. Raphael took a step closer, his voice shaking. You made me fall in love with you. And you hid this from me? Ronke's legs felt weak. She grabbed her chest, trying to breathe. I can explain, she whispered. Raphael let out a bitter laugh. Otna shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. It wasn't like that. Explain what? Raphael roared, his voice cracking with emotion. Do you know what you've done to me? Do you know how much I trusted you? Raphael, please. Raphael, please. You know what? He took a deep breath and straightened up. His face was void of any emotion now, just cold emptiness. I don't want to see you near me anymore. Ronke felt her heart shatter into a million pieces. Raphael, please, don't do this. But he was already stepping back. I hate everyone, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. You, Cynthia, even my own father. Dropped to her knees, crying uncontrollably as Raphael turned and walked away. This was it. She had lost him. And maybe she had lost herself, too. Raphael lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. His mind was restless, tormented by everything that had happened. Did Ronke really deserve this? Did I even hear her out? Regret gnawed at his heart. He had let his anger take control. He had pushed her away without letting her explain. What if she really had no choice? What if she did it out of desperation? He sat up, running a frustrated hand through his hair. I need to talk to her. Without wasting another second, he grabbed his car keys and drove back to Ronke's house. Ronke was still sitting outside, hugging her knees as tears streamed down her face. She was heartbroken, exhausted, and overwhelmed with shame. The sound of an approaching car made her lift her head slightly. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw Raphael step out of his car to her and knelt beside her. Ronke. She wiped her face quickly. Why are you here? Raphael sighed. I made a mistake. I was angry. I didn't listen to you. Ronke let out a bitter laugh. Why are you sorry? It's my fault. I never told you the truth. He took a deep breath. Then tell me now. I want to understand. Ronke sniffled, gathering her courage. My dad was a farmer, but he got sick. He was bedridden and couldn't move. We had no money to take him to the hospital, she began, her voice shaky. Raphael listened carefully, his heart pounding. One day I went to the stream. I was singing, and out of nowhere a dog appeared. He danced to my voice. Then he spoke. Raphael's eyes widened slightly, but he didn't interrupt. Ronke swallowed hard. He introduced himself as Dotun. He told me that if I came to the stream every day, sang for him, and slept with him, my basket would always be full of money. Raphael clenched his fists, but remained silent. I thought about it all night, but the next day my father's condition worsened. I had no choke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I know what I did was disgusting. I hate myself for it. But I did it to save my father, and I never told anyone because I knew they would judge me. Raphael felt a lump in his throat. Where is your father now? He asked softly. He went to visit my cousin in Lagos, she whispered. My mom, too. They all went, except me. Raphael exhaled slowly. He was still in shock, but he could see the pain in her eyes, the guilt, the suffering. She wasn't a monster. She was just a girl who had been forced to make an impossible choice. He glanced at his watch. It was already 11 p.m. I can't go home this late, he said after a moment. Can I stay here for the night? Ronke nodded. Fine. I'll prepare a room for you. Thanks. For the first time that night, she felt a small sense of relief. The next morning, as Ronke was making breakfast, there was a loud knock at the door. She opened it to find Tyler standing. Saw Raphael inside the house. His expression darkened. Ah, Ronke, Tyler exclaimed. You're with him again. Ronke frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Tyler pointed at Raphael. He never loved you. He has a motive. I know it. Raphael stood up, his eyes narrowing. And what motive is that? Tyler clenched his jaw. You're only here to play with her heart. And Ronke, you're falling for it. Ronke's eyes burned with anger. Tyler, get out. Tyler's eyes widened in shock. What? Don't you dare touch me, she spat. You're a fake friend and a traitor. Tyler's face fell. Ronke, please. Why didn't you tell Raphael the truth yourself, Tyler? She demanded. Tyler's lips trembled. Because I love you. Silence filled the room. Because I love you? Silence filled the room. He destroyed my relationship. Tyler's shoulders slumped. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you to him. Ronke let out a shaky breath. But you already lost me. Tyler's eyes filled with regret. I messed up. Ronke nodded. Yes, you did. Raphael put an arm around Ronke protectively. Leave, Tyler. You've done enough. Stared at Ronke one last time, his heart breaking, before turning around and walking away. As soon as he was gone, Ronke turned to Raphael. I don't know what to do anymore, she whispered. Raphael pulled her into his arms. You don't have to do it alone anymore. For the first time in a long time, Ronke felt safe. The next day, Cynthia stormed into Raphael's mansion, her heels clicking aggressively against the floor. Raphael was seated in the living room, sipping his coffee when he saw her. He rolled his eyes in irritation. What are you doing here, Cynthia? Haven't you done enough damage? Cynthia smirked. Raphael, Just get out, he cut her off, his voice sharp. You're heartless. How can you be happy that your so-called best friend is suffering? Cynthia scoffed. Oh, please, Raphael, she's not the victim here. You know what? Raphael stood up, his expression unreadable. I know the truth now. Ronke did what she did because she was trying to save her father. And I wasted my time believing lies instead of standing by. Smirk faltered. And for your information, Raphael continued, his voice steady, I'm getting married to her next week. Cynthia's eyes widened in shock. Next week? Yes, Raphael said firmly. Now go to hell, Cynthia. Cynthia clenched her fists, her face filled with anger and regret. But Raphael didn't care anymore. He had made his choice. Ronke's father, mother, and younger brother Bolaji finally returned from their trip. The moment they stepped into the house, they were filled with joy. How was the trip, Dad? Ronke asked excitedly. It was awesome, her father beamed. I hope nothing went wrong here while we were gone. No, sir, everything is fine, Ronke assured him. Her father nodded. Good. Now go and prepare some food with your mother. Bolaji, go and play outside. Okay, Daddy. Bolaji grinned and ran off. As Ronke's mother headed to the kitchen, Ronke turned to her father. There's something I want to discuss with you. Her father gestured for her to sit. I'm listening, my daughter. Ronke took a deep breath. Dad, I'm in love with a man. He's from a wealthy background, but I don't love him for his money. I love him for who he is. Her father smiled warmly. My daughter, your happiness matters more than riches. If you truly love him, that is all that matters. Ronke nodded, feeling emotional. Dad, he already knows my past. He knows about Dotun. Her father's face fell for a moment, then he sighed deeply. My child, I feel guilty for everything that happened. It's all my fault. Ronke immediately shook her head. No, Dad, it's not your fault. It's because you were bedridden. I was desperate to save you. Tears welled in her father's eyes. I'm so sorry, my daughter. I caused you so much pain. Ronke hugged him tightly. I love you, Dad. I love you too, my daughter, he whispered, holding her close. Bolaji peeked in from the door. What about me, eh? He teased. They all burst into laughter and pulled him in for a group hug. Afternoon, Ronke decided to visit Raphael at his home. When she arrived, she was greeted by a familiar face, Raphael's mother. They both froze in shock. "Ronke," Raphael's mother gasped, her face lighting up with recognition. Ronke smiled brightly. "Ma!" The older woman rushed forward and hugged her tightly. Raphael, who had just walked in, was stunned. "Wait! You two know each other?" His mother turned to him, still smiling. "Son, this is the girl that helped me when my car broke down that day. She's the one who called the mechanic." Raphael's eyes widened in surprise. "Really?" Ronke nodded shyly. His mother turned back to her. "Thank you so much, my dear. That day I was so frustrated and you were so kind to me. I had no idea you were the same girl my son is in love with." Ronke blushed. "Don't thank me, Ma, thank God." Raphael's mother laughed. "Oh, my dear, I love you already." Raphael smiled as he watched them hug again. His heart felt lighter knowing that his mother already adored Ronke. This was meant to be. A week later, Ronke and Raphael got married in a grand ceremony filled with love, joy, and redemption. Had survived betrayal, secrets, and pain, but in the end, love won. Years later, they were blessed with 3 children, 2 beautiful daughters and a handsome son, and every day, as Raphael held Ronke close, he whispered, "I'm glad I chose you." The end. What is the moral lesson you learnt from the story? Which country are you watching from?